Hello world. I thought I'd do a video walking around today. Reason being because it's not really that natural for me to sit in place and talk. I feel a lot more comfortable when I'm just pacing around, but I guess like the videos I've made so far, I've just thought to myself, all right, I'm just gonna sit down. And I think I actually feel more naturally expressive when I'm moving though. And more like I'm drawing in to contemplate when I'm sitting still. So I've got this massive pimple that's bigger than the world itself, but I thought that's, if anything, that's a good reason to make a video because it will help me overcome my fears of disgusting pimples. So what we're going to talk about in today is I'm going to talk a little bit about introversion and some of the most helpful things for me that I've recognized that have helped me get to the point of being so introverted that I will spend almost all of my time drawing into myself, and to the point where I don't really want to speak to a cashier. I don't really want, I mean, it's not that I don't want, I'm just like too uncomfortable to be able to speak to a cashier. I found eye contact difficult, and generally just, I've spent the majority of my life by myself. Like that's kind of my story. And although I still am highly introverted and I honor my introverted tendencies, I actually love the way that I am as an introvert. Although that's the case, I also, have realized the massive drawbacks of that lifestyle in terms of, social game and being able to go on dates with girls that you like. It's just, not that, I was definitely going on dates when I was more drawn in by myself here and there, but I was never really getting to the point where I had a good option of girls because I could not go and meet them. I felt too uncomfortable to meet them. And even now, it's not like I'm claiming to have like completely transcended my fears of meeting women or approaching women, but I'm in a place with it where I can regularly approach women, get girls on dates, have awesome experiences with girls. And usually I actually find it pretty fun now. Like you have the odd not so fun approach. I've definitely had my fair share of them, but usually speaking, like I have fun when I'm doing it. And I guess the reason I felt motivated to make this video today, because this is completely spontaneous, I didn't think about this before at all. The reason I felt motivated to make this video today is because for the last maybe like 5 days or so, even though I've been out quite a bit, I've not actually talked to any girls. I've just kind of not done it. And there have been times where I've wanted to, but again, that tendency would hold me in place. And today it was like up at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just been in all day reading and contemplating and doing a bit of painting. And I'll show you guys what I painted. Painted this Scales of Justice board. I really like this. I'd already painted the board, but I was like, now it's broken, now it's gone. Now there's no real justice in this world. No, but I really liked the, board. I painted it this like warm gold, and then, I just kind of had this, I was reading and I was thinking about the Scales of Justice. I was thinking about balance, and I was like, yes, that is exactly what I need on there. Anyway, I'd been drawn in basically all day, and I went out today, and I just was in one of those moods where it's like, I really feel like I need to talk to some people. I need to connect to some people. And I started with some just chatting to people basically, and smiling at people who walk by and all that juicy stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I only made one approach today, but the approach I made, it was completely spontaneous. I saw a girl next to me. She was mad cute, loved her outfit. And I told her that. I just said, I love your outfit. And then I asked her if her passion was style, and We had an awesome chat for like 10 minutes and it was a smooth click, and I have got her number and I hope to see her in the next couple days. And it was all just so natural and smooth that at first when you're doing this, it's almost like a rush every time you do it, where like this one just felt like so natural and so smooth that it was very normal. And I think afterwards, like what's probably prompted me to make this is when you're in that state in yourself where you feel like you can't do it, you can't meet new people, you can't talk, and you tell yourself fucking all manner of like deluded stories about how you can't do it as well, if you're anything like me. I think what's so profound about that to me is how real that is. Like how real that actually feels at the time. Because those last few days I've just been like, oh, maybe I just need a break. I need to like spend more time doing this thing, work on this project. And I'm like, I'm gonna travel, so I have to like do it. And it's just like all this bullshit that you funnel yourself. And then it's like you time travel into the moment when you're actually doing it. And you're like, I actually love doing this. It's just fear that prevents me. And it's not healthy, it's not useful, and then it feels natural as ever when you're actually doing it. And I think that, I felt motivated to do it because I just broke out of that, and I know that I'm going to go back into it as well. I just thought this might be a helpful message if you feel like you're in that position yourself and you're kind of in a bit of a dry patch, or you're like sort of kind of caught in your own head. Or maybe you just haven't you're interested in cold approach and you're interested in starting off cold approach, but you just don't really know where to begin because you're really introverted. And believe me, if that is the case, if I can teach myself how to do this, like any, I know it sounds very cliche, but anyone can teach themselves to go and speak to girls. This week, today, if I can do it, anyone can do that, because technically you might get people who are more introverted than me, who are more hermit-like than me. I've often sometimes wondered if maybe I'm more of an ambivert, but my tendencies are highly introverted. I am highly drawn into myself usually. So anyway, the reason I think it's going to be good to hear a couple of my insights on this as well is because a lot of the advice that comes from people in the pickup community, that there are certain like videos and podcasts, and there are things where there's advice for introverted guys, and there are some good things on it. Like shout out to Natural Lifestyles, because Natural Lifestyles has some incredible stuff for introverted guys and approaching girls. Alex Leone and James Marshall are just fantastic at tackling that, because you can tell they are more introverted, cerebral guys, like naturally. But then you get some other channels, a lot of like the RSD channels, a lot of the RSD content, all that sort of stuff. These guys aren't introverted, so they make content, and it does make sense, and I'm sure they are good at what they do with coaching, but they aren't actually introverted themselves oftentimes. So it gets a bit like, it can get a bit tricky because it doesn't really feel like it's directed at you. It feels like it's directed at their image of you, because it is, and it doesn't really tackle the problem. So I'm going to try to do that from my angle a little bit. All right. So let's talk first of all a little bit about how introverted energy works, and you can see if you relate. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to work with that energy to actually get you in the position where you're actually meeting people and you're able to go up and speak to girls with it. I'm not going to go over the whole how to do an approach thing, because there's just too much good content out there, and my way of covering it would be shit compared to that content probably. I'm just going to cover like what has helped me basically get out of my shell a little bit and actually go and fucking do that. So the way introverted energy tends to work is, it's almost like if you can imagine an infinity loop that's inward drawn. It's sort of like a continuous stream of energy that is drawing inward. And as it draws inward more, it sort of like multiplies within itself, and it sort of gets to the point where it's like digesting itself. So the introverted psychology is very much like you're very much perceiving everything through your subjective lens, and you're very inward drawn. Essentially it is actually kind of like being self-absorbed in the literal sense. Like you are, like for me, I'm naturally quite self-absorbed. I'm not highly narcissistic to my knowledge, but I am very self-absorbed. I do view things largely through my own framework, and I would quite happily, and I have quite happily, sat in the house for days on end before reading books and contemplating and taking psychedelics. That is my more natural tendency, to want to sort of explore myself like that. And, on the bad end, there's playing video games, jerking off, and smoking bong hits. That was also another pastime of mine in the past. So, yeah, there's a highly inward moving stream of energy. And the reason this makes it so difficult for you to be able to go and meet new people and go to speak to attractive girls who intimidate you is basically because you are not really present and aware in the situation at all. You're not really attuned to what's going on. Rather, you're attuned to your inward reflection of the situation. And that also reflects where you're at with your self-esteem and everything else, right? If you're hyper aware of yourself, it's very difficult to open yourself up and be in a social situation, and to be in a place where you can actually really take in the energy of the other person, right? I have a video that I released called The Joy of Communication, How to Show and Feel Love Through Communication. Wow, I just remembered that really quickly. You might like that video because I talk a bit about how when you're speaking to people, if you're present with them and you're paying attention to them, there's kind of like that outward energy, and you're able to really take in the person like that. It's really beautiful, and it really is what allows you to connect to another person. Where if you're really drawn into yourself, it is obviously like very difficult to communicate to another person. It's very difficult to be there. Like one of the questions that comes up a lot when, there's that kind of questions about like, approaching girls and talking to girls. It's like, how do you know what to say? How do you not run out of things to say? And it's funny because I've actually thought about that a lot. That was one of my biggest fears, is like, how will I not run out of shit to say? What if the conversation just goes flat? Like, that's a huge fear to me. But what's interesting about that is as you get more experience and you actually start to just go and talk to more people, and you actually are just a bit more social in general, just a bit more, you start to realize that the problem you have is like, you basically, like, imagine you're like with a really good friend. Imagine you're like just with like a really good friend, and you're fucking vibing and you're having like a good time. You're hanging out with your friend. Do you worry at all? Let me ask you, do you worry at all or think about like what to say next? Like, you probably don't, right? You probably don't even fucking think about what to say next, because you just feel comfortable in that moment. You're just happy to keep saying things. Like for me, like with my closest friends and the people I'm most comfortable around, like, I'm thinking of this one particular friend I have, right? So she's like one of my best friends in the world, and she's also my ex-girlfriend. And I love hanging out with her though, because she's just a fucking fantastic human being, just like a beautiful human being. And when I'm with her, I think I never once in my life have I ever thought, oh, what do I say next? Even like on our first dates, because it's just how much we click. And to this day, how much we click. Like I could just hang out with her for like 10 hours straight and always know what to say and always know how to keep things fun and enjoyable. And it's like the gaps and the breaks and the long pauses for eye contact, or just, they just feel perfectly natural. There's no fear. And you probably know what that's like in some capacity, right? Like, and if even if you do feel that way with your friends, like, and the example I give doesn't, talking to friends doesn't hold up, you can think about your parents, right? You can think about a family member. You can think about whoever the fuck, your dog, whatever. I mean, hopefully you don't speak to your dog for 10 hours straight, but, I'm not judging that behavior. I'm just, it seems a bit eerie. But generally, you don't worry about running out of what to say when you feel comfortable. And obviously that presents a problem because it's like, well, I don't feel fucking comfortable here. Like, it's actually really difficult. And it is at first. It's really like, it feels like a bit of a grind at first just to sort of get into the habit of this, to be honest with you. And I'm still somewhat in that grind myself. Like I said at the beginning, I don't claim to be a master of this. But I am at the point where I do it regularly and do get pretty good results from it. So the way you want to kind of look at that is just being inward drawn like that. It makes you overly self-conscious. So understand that first off. Understand what your energy is doing. Like, again, it's an inward infinity loop. You're moving inward constantly. And then when you're inside of yourself, you're locating those fears that we're talking about. Like, I don't know what to say. Does she like me? Does she think I'm weird? Is she uncomfortable? Was that movement? Did that mean this? Does she touch her hair because she likes me? All these things, and you're kind of, with your introverted lens, you're like subjectively drawing in, and you're trying to like analyze and like, you're trying to feel into or analyze the situation to make sense of what's happening, so you can then take that data and use it as like proof that this is either working or not working, so you can establish and frame your reality. But it fucks you in a way, right? Because in actuality, the reason extroverts find it a lot more easy to do this, like the reason a lot of extroverted guys just get into this and get results straight away, is because they're on the reverse. They have that infinity loop kind of movement. That's how I visualize it, at least. But it's outward moving. So they already like start off with like a high level of skill. Because what skill is in communication, basically, what skill is when you're meeting new people and talking to new people and connecting with people, making connections. Skill is basically being able to be present with the other person and pay attention to them, right? And then there's an amazing thing that can happen where your natural self starts to just shine through there. Again, you're not really worried about your natural self shines through. So you're just sort of in this place where it's like you already feel like you don't even think about what to say next. Like, there are lots of approaches that I'll make now, like the one I had today was really good because I wasn't thinking about what to say next. I was just kind of like feeling into the space between us and letting the next thing come out. And if you're doing that and you're actually present in the moment, you'll notice that there's always something to actually jump off of in the last thing. And if there isn't anything, you just bring a new thing up. Like today we were talking about coffee and then there was a pause and then I waited a second. I was like, yeah, I'm not drinking too much coffee anymore because I think it's like fucking my gut up a bit. So I'm like, two a day is a bit much. And that usually, and if she's interesting, that's like leading to something. If she's interested, that's going to lead to something else, and that's going to bounce. And again, you sort of develop this ability over time more. So recognize what your energy is doing first off. It's going inward. So the easiest way to do that, the easiest way to handle that and work with that if you're an introvert, is to basically, just move it outward. So you can literally like what I do is I literally visualize this. I get to the point in my mind where I'm actually an outward infinity loop. And when I'm like interacting with people, I imagine like something moving out of me rather than my natural tendency to sort of like go inward and analyze. I'm like moving outward. I connect outwardly. I like fill up a room. I become part of a room. And I know how to connect with people like this, right? It starts to feel very natural. It starts to feel very comfortable. And it's actually very fun as well. Like, you know, like we're saying, it's actually really fun to do this, like once you start to get the hang of it. So understand the direction that your energy is moving. Although I've said a lot, I'm just sort of wrapping off of my head here. The key principle is be present and pay attention to her. Exterocept as much as you can. You don't want to be interoceptive as much as you probably usually are. Exterocept, permeate your awareness and your consciousness outward towards her. Pay attention to her. Be interested in her. And express what you actually are trying to express through your eyes and through the way you're standing, and let it flow. And I know that can seem like a bit like a truism kind. It's like, well, that doesn't feel good. It's like, okay, well, you'll get to that over time, but that is really what you're aiming towards, and it's important to know what you are aiming towards when you're doing shit, I would say. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I'm going to say is, this is for like when you're starting out, or you are having like a particular sort of dry patch kind of, you don't really feel as though you have done this before, or you just don't really feel comfortable with it right now. Here's a really quick trick, like something really quick you can do and easily. And pay close attention to this, because if you recognize this, you're going to move past these patches quicker, and you're going to be able to start getting results quicker. This is kind of like the same thing as like the interocepting too much thing. Do not fucking get lost in that sense of, oh, I'm failing and I haven't done this in ages. Like, when that dialogue starts to arise in you, redirect your thinking immediately, as quickly as you can. That would be my advice to you. And start focusing on building some level of a positive, because it's like a snowball. When you go out and you don't feel like you can talk to people, you don't feel like you can make approaches, you don't feel like you can connect, it's a negative snowball. And the more you start thinking like that, the more you feel disconnected from everyone around you, and it just sort of compounds on one another. On itself, sorry. It just sort of compounds in on itself, and it's just, before you know it, you're just fucking like, you just feel miserable, and it's like, oh Jesus, I can't seem to make any progress here. Where the antithesis of that is fucking, yeah, you actually do feel like you can do it. You can talk to as many people as you want, even if, like for me, when I go out to meet girls, or I go out and I end up meeting girls, I usually, just the deal I have with myself is I only need to do one, and then I'll usually do, my number tends to be 3 or 4 when I go out. Any more than that, like I said, I am a pretty introverted person. It does start to drain my energy a bit. It's not that I can't do it, but it's 3 or 4, maybe 5 is a good number for me throughout a couple of hours period in day game. So yeah, recognize that snowball. Try to build a positive and let it pay dividends, basically. So how do you build a positive really quickly? Well, one thing you can do is you can literally just practice smiling at people on the street. And, I'm often like, I think one thing I've realized as I've started to learn more about social dynamics is a lot of people are very they have horrible energy fields. They have horrible energy fields, and they have a terrible darkness about them. Like, you smile at a lot of people and they scutter away, and it's almost like the light if you shine light out of you, it almost seems to draw like a massive shadow out of people. Don't be bothered by that, because if you are bothered by it and you start thinking, oh, people don't want me to talk to them, it's that snowball. You start building up negative compound. It has a negative compound effect. So start looking at people and smiling at them. And if they don't smile back, just very quickly and simply, without contemplating it that deeply, quickly and simply recognize that is just basically their insecurity, and that you're completely fine to connect and smile with other people. It's actually a beautiful way of just charging up your energy. I remember that, you guys remember that thing that was that study years ago, and it was smiling at someone is the equivalent of eating 500 chocolate bars or whatever. And yeah, I don't really know the validity of that. I don't really know how true that is or isn't. But it is definitely something that sparks me inside. It sort of sparks the sunlight inside of me. So smile at people, connect to people. I smiled at this woman yesterday when I was walking down the street, and it like made my whole, like, I don't know if it made my whole day, but it really lit me up because we had like a good eye contact and a good smile at one another, and it felt really awesome. So build up a positive compound effect by smiling at people. Next, talk to people. That the first step is just making contact, smile at people. The other thing you can do is you can just like head bob at people. You can just, and sometimes like people like they sort of like you light them up inside because they'll be like, oh, like hi, oh hi, like it's really nice to do. And the other thing you can do is if if you have eye contact with someone and you're smiling at them, you can just wave. You just wave. And some people find it really weird. Some people react really strangely. It's funny actually. You can tell how fucked our social matrix is, because like if you wave at like someone or a group of people and you say hey, they're like sometimes they're like, what, like, yeah, who is saying hi to me? Like, you don't even know me. And when you actually think about how fucked up that is, it's like, it's pretty amazing, because it's like, well, what, you can't say hi to people, you can't smile at people, you can't wave at people, you can't just go and connect with new people. It's almost like we don't feel like it's okay to do that. So wave at people, make eye contact with people, connect with people. This will, I guarantee you as well, like unequivocally, this will work. This will start building that kind of social momentum in you. And when you actually start making your first approaches that day, it's gonna feel a lot easier. I fucking guarantee you. Just connect with people. Next step, go talk to people who aren't girls that you want to fuck. It's a lot easier. Like, if you see some like old dude like sitting on a bench, go and ask him about something or other. Like, I had a couple weeks ago, maybe a few weeks ago now, I had a conversation for nearly 2 hours, one of the best conversations I've had this year, with like a random old guy who happened to be a therapist, just because I liked his watch. For 2 hours, maybe not 2 hours, about an hour and a half, we sat across from each other in Starbucks, and I almost cried at one point in that conversation. We went so deep, and it was like an hour of therapy because he wasn't turned out to be a fucking therapist. But the point is, after that, I felt, like for me, that will drain me a bit talking to someone for that long, to be honest. But you get what I mean? It feels good that you're connecting with someone at that level. So you build up momentum. For an extrovert, they actually, I can't even imagine this, but they actually garner life force energy from connecting with people more. Where for me, it's like, it does actually drain me pretty easily. That's why if I'm hardcore making approaches and I'm doing like multiple girls every day and I'm going on lots of dates, and by the end of the week, I will feel fucked. I will feel absolutely exhausted. Maybe not fucked and absolutely exhausted, but it can definitely take it definitely has like its drawback. So that's kind of one of the ways I would tell I'm an introvert. So yeah, build up positive compound effect by communicating and making small social gestures. And the original reason I made that point is you have to feel good about it. There's no value to be gained in beating yourself up because you didn't meet your own imaginary quota that you haven't really even fully set. It's just bad mindset. It won't help you. What will help you is building up a positive quota. So if you don't feel like you can go out and start meeting girls right away, that's completely okay. Go out and wave at 3 people today. That's your fucking goal for the next 2 weeks. For the next 14 days, you have to wave at 3 people a day, right? So you have to wave at 42 people. That's your fucking goal. For the next 2 weeks, you just have to go wave at 42 people. You do it all in one day, or you do it 3 people a day is best. And by the end of that, you will actually build up something of a compound effect. Now, it will be a small compound effect, but if you're starting out, it's still going to be useful to you. The compound effect you'll build up from actually just going to speak to girls that you're attracted to frequently will be much higher. The dividends it pays are pretty massive in pretty much every area, especially if you're a very introverted guy, because if you're a very introverted guy, you're probably imbalanced in a way, in the sense that you probably don't have enough social connection that's like kind of how it goes usually for very introverted guys. You probably don't have enough social connection with other people, right? So it will actually balance out your personality more over time. So yeah, there are two things. So again, to summarize, we're outward focused, exteroceptive, present in the moment and observing as we're there, rather than going inward. So the first step of that is just awareness, it's just noticing that. And the second step is building up positive compound effect, positive compound interest, by building up a social flow. And practice this, get good at this, and yeah, you're gonna get massive results from both of those things. I can attest to it personally. You will. If I can do that, you're absolutely capable of it, unless you're like a true hermit. You're probably not though. You're probably, especially if you're interested in this, you probably already have some social skills. It's just wanting to get that bit better. And the third thing, this is just gonna be a small one because I'm kind of ready to fuck off now. The third thing is, if you're really introverted, go online and look up approaches, like watch them a bit. You don't have to obsessively watch them, and you don't probably want to watch too many, because nothing supplements actually just going to meet new people. But take a bit of time to actually watch approaches happening, normalize it in your mind. And yeah, if you want to, you can sort of imagine yourself doing it. I would say that just might as well just go do it at that point. But yeah, that's the other third thing. So maybe you could actually say they kind of go in backwards order. If you really have no idea at all, watch some approaches online, listen to some of the theory, etc. Second of that, build up a positive compound effect by just connecting with people in general, by waving and smiling and going to speak to old men on benches and shit. And third thing, outward moving energy. You want an outward focused, exteroceptive, present moment attitude. You don't want to be caught in your own stuff. There are a few things that are going to be really helpful for you. I guarantee it. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh, they only work for this, will work for everyone. Just try to wrap your head around it. And don't take my word for it, personalize it. Personalize everything that I'm saying. When it comes to, like I said, making an outward moving energy force, that has to visually make sense to you. So you can do that right now in your kitchen by just imagining what an outward focused state of being is like when you're speaking to people versus an inward one. It's actually very simple. It just seems complex when you're on the other end of it. So yeah, personalize it, make it your own. Anyway, that's me. There are a few things that I've realized from getting a bit more social and starting to get some results in day game. So if you find this useful, fucking like it, subscribe to my channel so I can continue to grow this, and yeah, share it if you find if you think anyone could benefit from it. I'm going to eat some dinner now, but that's me. Thanks for watching.